About 12 months ago, Shane and I decided to try to register the party for the 2015 election. And may I add here that the support of both Exit and Dying with Dignity organisation and members was pivotal, because I think without them we wouldn't have made it, so I want to acknowledge that. You know, I received several letters from people refusing to join, all of them sort of basically saying, you're going to split the Green vote. And I replied to every one of them individually, and I said, no, we're not, because most of the people who would like to support us are not Greens. They probably wouldn't support the Greens. We want to get to the, what I call the progressive Liberals and the progressive Labour members, and who would vote for the Voluntary Euthanasia Party, but perhaps wouldn't vote specifically for Greens. And I think we've been fairly successful, because when we look at our candidates for the Legislative Council, I think among the candidates, I think we have 2 ex-members of the National Party and about 3 ex-members of the Liberal Party. The rest are, you know, people who voted Labour or Green or Liberal or whatever, but the fact is we're covering a broad spectrum, and I think that's terrific that we get that. And I mention this just to underline our role. I would like to think of as a moderate social reforming party. We're not interested in wrecking governments or overturning legislation. We just want to use social progress, and when we're in the upper house, we will, I think, work towards that end. A couple of very brief things. A few people have mentioned that they wanted to make donations here, or this is not a fundraising meeting, but our treasurer is Dee, and she's got a receipt book. So if anyone wants to make a donation, we never refuse it, and we've had a fabulous response to our last letter. By the way, we've done very well. And I'm sure Shane will refer to that. And yeah, well, golly, you know, you've been listening to radio recently, and this morning Fran Kelly was doing an interview and a debate on it. Yesterday there was a full-page article in the Age. Yesterday also the Exposure bill from Richard Di Natale. You know something, people? I think our time is come. I think we're coming and we're going to be there. And I think with the support of everyone, we're going to make this. So let me, without further ado, call upon Tracey Spicer, our guest speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry, for those wise words. I love that. We are a moderate, socially reforming party, and our time has come. That's absolutely right. It's such an honour to be asked to speak at the campaign launch here for the Voluntary Euthanasia Party of New South Wales. For those who don't know me, I first became involved with this issue when my dear mother Marcia died a long and painful death from pancreatic cancer 15 years ago. On her deathbed, she begged me to do everything I could to fight for laws which, while they didn't help her, could help alleviate the suffering of so many others. I wrote a speech after that, which I performed at a Women of Letters event entitled, "So Sorry Mum, I Didn't Kill You." I spoke about the guilt that I felt not being able to put Mum out of her misery. This was later published in the Fairfax newspapers, and I was so surprised by the flood of support from so many, really hundreds of thousands of others who'd also watched their loved ones scream in agony, and also realised that while palliative care drugs do help, they can't cap the pain 100%. These words have been echoed, as you might have seen, in the federal Senate inquiry by the long-term politician Ian MacDonald. He said his mother's prolonged demise partly shaped his view that terminally ill Australians should have a right to die, provided a law has adequate safeguards to protect the vulnerable. And that's what we're talking about today. A conscience vote on national euthanasia laws is the key recommendation of this inquiry, as you would have read or heard. But I don't think we can simply sit back and wait for our federal politicians to take their sweet time about this. We need to keep up the fight at every level of government and in every form of media that we can. I know there's some disappointment that there's not media here today. Having worked on both sides of the media, I can tell you it's a very difficult issue to get in the media. I've had news directors say to me, "No, you can't talk about voluntary euthanasia, it's too depressing," which is rubbish. Every time I address the issue on Talkback Radio, we got dozens and dozens of calls. So I think we all need to try to keep the issue in the face of media in whatever way we can. We have the support of the Australian people. You would see here 85% of Australians supporting voluntary euthanasia, more than 4 in 5 across as political lines, as Barry said. As we've seen in Oregon, Washington, the Netherlands and Belgium, there is no slippery slope. There are no relatives trying to knock off the elderly for money. And there aren't the mentally unwell using the laws without understanding the consequences. All this fear campaign hasn't been realised. There's just an understanding that this is a basic human right, even among people of faith, and I'm delighted that the Reverend is here today. The great Desmond Tutu said in July this year, "The manner of Nelson Mandela's prolonged death was an affront. I have spent my life working for dignity of the living. Now I wish to apply my mind to the issue of dignity for the dying." This is really a tipping point in this debate, I think. This is what Shane Higson understood as she watched her own mother suffer at the end of her life. As you would know, Shane is the state convener and lead candidate for this party, and her passion, energy and integrity have made this party a force to be reckoned with. I'm so impressed by Shane, it's remarkable. Make no mistake, this is not just some single issue party. This issue concerns all of humanity. We'll be hearing from Shane shortly, but first of all, let's hear from a woman who had the same type of cancer that afflicted Shane's mother. A woman whose courage and conviction has changed the debate about end-of-life choices all over the world. A woman who's widened the discussion to the young, not just the middle-aged and the old. And a woman whose video has been seen by 11 million people worldwide through YouTube. This woman is Brittany Maynard. Let's take a look.